All right, thank you for those of you who have been able to join us tonight. I'll just mention a few um, logistical items in terms of the webinar tonight. So I'll be sharing a presentation and then we'll have an opportunity for questions and answers at the end. So if you would like to ask any questions, you can raise your hand and I can give you the opportunity to unmute your mic and share your question, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have after the presentation. And with that, I will jump right in. So my name is Hannah Ormshaw. I'm the Assistant Director for the San Mateo County Parks Department. And tonight I'm going to be presenting on our department's wildfire mitigation program. So this is an updated program that replaces the prior wildfire fuel management program that the department has had in place since 2021. And the purpose of this program is primarily as a guidance document for the department for us to identify projects and allocate resources to help us complete this important work. The goals for the presentation are to share the details of our updated program, and this includes the benefits that wildfire mitigation efforts are able to provide, the information that we use for decision making when we're identifying projects, and the amount of work that we're accomplishing throughout the park system. By conducting wildfire mitigation projects in county parks, this provides some key wildfire risk reduction benefits. And the diagram here on the slide shows some overlapping areas that can combine to help mitigate the risks of wildfire. And so the work that county parks performs doesn't involve residential home hardening or defensible space on private property. But within our program, the work we do focus on and that we can do within our parks can make landscapes more resilient to fire and can improve safe and effective wildfire response. So by conducting vegetation management to reduce fire fuels through thinning vegetation, we can potentially change the fire behavior in terms of the speed or the intensity at which a fire might spread, and can limit the likelihood of a fire entering and spreading through a tree canopy. We can also improve the conditions that allow for firefighters to get into our parks and safely conduct fire suppression work. And this can also help provide more time for residents to evacuate if that becomes necessary. However, it is important to note that wildfire mitigation projects are not able to eliminate all fire risk. And so fuel breaks or areas where we've done vegetation removal are not intended to completely stop the spread of fire without fire personnel also actively conducting fire suppression work. And there will also always be factors that affect wildfire, the behavior of a wildfire that are outside of our control, like weather conditions or terrain. Wildfire mitigation projects can also have an environmental benefit, such as improving forest health by removing diseased or dead vegetation, making forests more resilient or protecting them against climate change, improving wildlife habitat, and reintroducing disturbances that are a natural part of the ecosystem. And so the wildfire mitigation work that we do it can reduce wildfire risk, it can improve public safety and improve ecosystem health, but won't necessarily eliminate all fire risk. So why are we working on updating our program? As I mentioned, we've had a wildfire fuel management program in place since 2021. And this initial program was intended to have a 5-year time frame. And so we're getting near that 5 years and have been working on this updated program. We've also had a lot of conversations with our local fire agencies, including CAL FIRE, to understand what areas are high priority for them in terms of work that we perform. And one thing that we heard from them was including more projects that focus on fire-related infrastructure, like improving fire roads or improving water supply. So we made some additions with projects that focus on that type of work. And so with this added priority, we're renaming the program as the Wildfire Mitigation Program rather than having the focus primarily on fuel management. The updated program also provides more rationale for the types of wildfire mitigation we complete and how we're defining those projects, as well as how we make decisions for the type of work that we perform. There are also new map data that's been updated or developed in the past few years. Specifically, CAL FIRE's updated their fire hazard severity zone maps, and this occurred in 2023. And we have a regional vegetation map and fuel model that was completed in 2022. And so the map that you see on this slide overlays those two data sets along with information on important access routes, and it creates this map tool that we can use to help visualize hazardous areas in and around our parks, which are the green outlined areas on the map. The update also reflects work that's been completed in recent years to show progress that we've made recently, as well as the work that we have planned soon. In addition to using the map data for planning and decision making for our projects, it's essential that we conduct on-the-ground site assessments so that we can observe conditions within the parks and help understand and better define a particular project. So things we look for can include vegetation density, how steep the slopes are, what the existing and available access looks like, what wildlife habitat or sensitive species might be present, proximity to structures, and other considerations related to permitting. So all of these factors help define a specific project area, the method we might implement. And for example, we could determine that the existing access and the terrain that we're working with along a fire road within a eucalyptus forest would be conducive for us to be able to establish a 100-foot wide shaded field break with mechanical equipment. Or if we're looking at a steep oak woodland with a lot of sensitive habitat throughout, we may determine that a 10-acre area of a shade field break could be created by using manual or hand tool removal methods only. Additionally, we have at this point several hundred acres of parkland where fuel reduction work has been performed in recent years. And so these regular site assessments help us determine our ongoing maintenance needs and timing so that we can maintain the effectiveness of these projects long term. And so the department is making our decisions on how to implement these projects using the best available information and site-specific considerations. Now I'm going to share some information on the treatment areas that we've identified in the program. Fuel breaks are the most common type of project within our parks for wildfire mitigation. Shaded fuel breaks are used in forests to focus on thinning understory vegetation. So as a comparison for these images, you see in the before photos, more dense understory, lots of dead or, old dead material in the understory. The goal would be to clear that fuel and that vegetation to create the more open space in the understory that you see in the after photo. And this example that you see is for Edgewood County Park. And we're typically locating shaded fuel breaks along park fire roads or along ridge lines or near park boundaries that are adjacent to structures. And the goal is for these to be strategically located where they can help slow the spread of fire and help allow for fire suppression efforts to occur. We also have extensive shaded field break areas throughout Quarry Park. Many of these areas had been initially treated in starting in 2019 up until this past year and have been maintained annually. On the map, the solid blue areas show work that has been implemented previously and is now being maintained regularly, whereas the hatched areas show upcoming planned work. In total, we have 744 acres of shaded field breaks identified throughout the park system. And similarly, non-shaded field breaks are another field break type, and these are used in areas with shrub vegetation cover or where there are very high densities of flammable weed species. And similar to shaded field breaks, these are typically located along ridge lines or access roads or near park perimeters and are meant to help support active fire suppression. And so these images show before and after photos of a non-shaded field break at San Bruno Mountain. And there are many areas where we've identified ridge lines where we plan to implement non-shaded field breaks. And this is due to the dense shrub cover, the fire frequency, and how the shrub species are expanding into grassland areas. Throughout the park system, we have 609 acres of non-shaded field breaks identified. For forest health treatments, we're looking at forested areas and parks that have been affected by pest or disease, or by a lack of active management, which has led to overly dense forest stands over many decades. These forest health projects follow a similar approach to shaded field breaks, where we're focusing on understory vegetation thinning, but often these can cover a broader area of forest within the parks, and these can both help mitigate wildfire risk by reducing the flammable vegetation in the landscape, but can also improve forest health and resilience. So these maps show Hutter and Wonderlick County Park, with the green areas representing forest health work that was done a few years ago using a CAL FIRE grant, and we were able to complete about 400 acres of this treatment approach. And these images show some before and after examples of that forest health work within those parks. And across the park system, we're looking at 518 acres of forest health work that we've identified. Ingress and egress treatments focus on maintaining at least the minimal clearance requirements for a Type 3 fire engine to safely traverse our park fire roads in the event of a fire. And so at Wonderlick County Park, for example, there are several sections of fire road where we aim to maintain this clearance so that these fire engines are able to access the interior of the park safely in the event of a fire. And again, throughout the park system, there's 131 acres with these ingress and egress field breaks identified. Forest density reduction is an approach for long-term forest restoration where we are making forest stands more capable of withstanding and surviving wildfire, and for trees to grow larger and healthier by selectively thinning overly dense forest stands, which will allow for space and resources for the retained trees to grow bigger over time. Currently, this work is limited to the forests at Pescadero Creek County Park. And lastly, looking at fire infrastructure related improvements. This can include addressing road related improvements like repairing bridges or other stream crossings, improving or extending fire roads, and can also include providing water supply in remote locations that can help aid fire suppression and response efforts. So an example for this is an extension of a fire road at Quarry Park which the plans on this slide show the section of fire road that would be constructed. And this would help provide better access for fire personnel to get in at the southern side of the park. And this table provides a summary of the acreage overall for the different treatment areas that are identified through the program. So, I would have gone through those numbers previously. And in total, we're looking at over 2,700 acres of work that we've identified. And these areas align with the priorities that were identified in discussion with fire agencies and with best practices for doing these fuel reduction treatments. And just to highlight how it's been beneficial for the department to have this program developed, with the prior iteration of our program, since 2018, 2019, we've really been able to increase the pace and scale at which we're implementing these wildfire mitigation projects. And so having the program in place has helped us more efficiently plan and implement projects. And as such, we've been able to complete over 1,800 acres since 2018. We've also been able to use the program to identify projects that are eligible for grant funding and have been successful in obtaining over 7.6 million in grant funds that have helped implement these wildfire mitigation projects in our parks. And so the updated program will really help continue this trend of getting this important work completed. Our wildfire mitigation program will enable the department to continue to reduce wildfire risk, continue to improve public safety, improve ecosystem health, and help us make informed decisions on how to quickly, efficiently, and responsibly implement this work across thousands of acres throughout the park system over the next several years. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Well, it looks like I'm not seeing any questions, so and I'm not sure that there's any for the chat either. So I will be providing this recording online on our website. So if you're interested in reviewing any of the other information, you can revisit this presentation recording. We also have a draft of the wildfire mitigation program posted on our website if you're interested in reading the whole document in full, which provides a lot of additional detail on the project areas, includes maps of each park where work is planned, and goes a bit more in depth into the decision making and rationale we have for each of our projects. And with that, I really thank you for being here tonight and listening to our update, and we'll continue to share information about the projects we implement over time. Thanks very much, and have a great